Sports Network. I am joined by, once again, one of our favorite guests here, Zach Keilman. Welcome, Zach. How are you doing this evening?
Well, good to be on here. Good to have you. It's like I'm hosting. No, good to be on here, man. Nice to jump back on once more. A lot of exciting stuff happening across the world of spring and alt football. So perfect timing.
Yeah, especially in indoor football, and more than usual, of course, we got the basically revitalization. Well, I wouldn't really call a rebrand. We'll just say just start over with the AF1 now. And there's some good things that we're seeing here. Last week they announced now they have an even amount of teams of 12. Still could be more because they extended a deadline for potential expansion franchise at least about 2 times because the deadline for it is actually, and strangely enough, on Halloween night.
Yes. So they originally were going to have their deadline mid-October. But as you saw in their press release about the situation, just kind of, you know, generalizing this a little bit, there's a lot of interest. I'll be honest with you. And this is just, not only the press release, but just myself. When I've been talking with people, there's a ton of interest in this league and trying to join AF1. Keep in mind, like, the people running this are some of very recognizable and very core members of what made arena football, and at least we're part of the arena football up and coming group from back in the day. So I think that also stands out, and some of the ideas that might be coming to the table later on, I think, are also what's helping push this, getting a competitive third league in the market that, has stable ownership, and also I think jumps and has leaps and pushes forward the sport, maybe ahead of, say, like the NAL, or to challenge the IFL. So, I think there's a lot of excitement around it. And that's clearly what they were doing, is to compensate for those that maybe last minute are jumping in and wanting to at least inquire on how I can maybe make a team, or perhaps push off and get some more time later this off season if you have a good successful season.
Yeah, because right now we see some free agent signings, and then I just saw a little bit of the Orlando Prairies. They're going to have local tryouts because a lot of people don't realize a lot of the talent actually comes in from the local tryouts. It doesn't matter what league, either from the top to the bottom to the minors. And dear Lord, there are so many minors. It's hard to how they are, and because the minors, we know this, arena, we put them in the professional sports bubble. Then you got the semi-pro and all that stuff, and those are kind of either above there or close to that level. Heck, there's actually a team near here called the Missouri Falcons that play an outdoor version right now of
nice.
That, and they're growing a little bit too. It's kind of fun, though. During the outdoor is kind of interesting. Then again, I have to remind people, because if everyone watched the Arena League, they actually had to do a makeshift outdoor arena for the Kansas City team, which actually surprisingly went very well and was very well attended for them. So congratulations them for the Kansas City Goats on there. And not to mention the Arena League, they're going to have their second season instead of 4. They add 2 more teams, and that's another league to keep an eye on and see how that grows a bit, because remember, they're mostly attacking the mid to little markets that usually, I know that maybe the Arena League Arena Football 1 might not target the IFL, or maybe they would at some point, but it's different, and it's good to have that, because honestly, I just don't see an arena football team because of the facilities in those in markets like in Springfield, Missouri. You could, it's just not big enough, but they're still good doing there. And of course, for Arena Football 1, I'll bring the updated map, because this is what it looks like here. And it just looks better because they introduced the Oregon Lightning, and the West just looks a lot better now, because you don't have Billings and Washington out there all by themselves in an island. You got more of that in the Midwest section now, unfortunately, with the Kansas and, of course, the New Mexico team, but it's a lot better than what it was.
Much, much better. So I know Jerry Kearse, CEO of AF1, has been on a few shows as of late, and just kind of reiterate, you can see, one of the worries with arena and indoor is about, travel. It's an insane cost. It takes a ton of the expense of the business every year. And so one thing that's great with what they have right now with, with the whole map they have of 12 teams that they've got currently, it's very regionalized right now. You can kind of see the picture of what they want to make in terms of potential, maybe division or conference setup. And it's going to save these teams at least a nice penny on the travel costs that they will have to pay. Because some of those flights to go to the East Coast or go completely to the West Coast, they'll break some smaller teams' backs, is all I can tell you. And hearing about travel stories last year, for example, Southwest Kansas trying to get to Albany, or Salina, the same thing, getting to like Albany all on the East Coast. Not saying that's impossible, but some of these flights, it's an extra challenge, and it puts a little bit more strain on the players. It helps the players. It helps the cost for teams. It's a big win. And the thing is, we might not be done. That's the thing. The league has alluded that there could be more, and we'll see, probably not at the deadline, but I imagine within the first week or so past the deadline, if I were an educated man, because keep in mind, they're going to have the schedule out for the season within the first 2 weeks of November. So no matter what, all the teams will be announced within those first 2 weeks of November.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And also good to hear a planned schedule point. Unlike, there's a few leagues that need to work on that, but then hopefully that improves soon when it comes to announcing a schedule here. Because we want the schedule. We'd like to know the dates, purchase some tickets, or able to save it for sorry about that. Because we're near the holiday season with Thanksgiving coming up, Black Friday to Sunday, Cyber Monday, and well, technically you could say this could be work for Small Business Saturday. So in a way, so it would tickets to these, and usually season tickets it's pretty much small compared to the NFL. Dear Lord.
Oh yeah.
One game could actually be maybe half of what a season ticket is for an arena football game, depending on where you are. Of course, I do have to mention the latest team that was in the arena football one, and even though this is not the updated logo, most of it is there with the Oregon Lightning here, because the updated one has more of the state of Oregon there in Bend, Oregon. It's kind of good to have this because we remember last season for the Oregon Black Bears, it actually would have been a good organization if just some things were run correctly. Though it does seem like they are playing in the same arena as before, or is it a different?
No, it's a completely different arena. I'm gonna lay that one down.
It said fairgrounds on there. I'm like, wait a minute.
Now it is a fairgrounds arena. So if we're gonna compare, you are right. Except the difference is this one's in Redmond, and this is to put a little bit of background context on the team that's coming in. So Chuck Jones, he's part owner, but he is the head coach of the Oregon Lightning. He has a great connection with Redmond and in that whole Central Oregon market, because he was a longtime coach for the former Oregon High Desert Storm in the American West Football Conference. So he took a lot of the expertise from last season, except the difference is it is an independent owned, fully local ownership. There is no league ownership part of this. There's no league affiliated part of this. You remember last year, the Black Bears, how the league had a lot of hand in that. We saw as time went on how Kayvon Thibodeau wasn't involved. As time we saw later down the line that we were kind of learning he wasn't there. So no, this is a locally owned group, a group that knows the area very well, and an arena, by the way, that not only has the proper height, but it also has the facility and capabilities to host an arena football game properly. It's done it multiple years for the High Desert Storm, and it's gotten people in, fans and seats before. So this is a much better situation than the Black Bears were in, and it's in a market that does know about the sport and has come out for the sport in the past.
Yes, and I have to remind people, because I mentioned this, Zach, earlier before the show, being in Bend, Oregon, it would be a huge less opportunity if you don't somehow do some sponsor partnership with the last Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon.
I need that so bad. I really do.
Yes, it's kind of also similar with the other expansion franchise with Wilkes-Barre in Pennsylvania. You're right near Scranton. If you don't have an office theme night or something to deal with the office, that is another huge opportunity that you missed. Though I do recall one interview, the owner, someone suggested maybe doing something with the one little bit mythical a character they had in there, like you try to guess who was with the Stranglers or something. Even I'm like, I'm not sure if that'll pass or not. It could, but
hey, it's arena football. You know, you do it properly. I mean, hey, people come out. You know, we had the freaking Topeka Tropics for several years, and that has no bearing on the area whatsoever. But you know, it worked. Just didn't work enough. That's the only thing.
Then again, the Los Angeles Lakers, there's not really lakes in Los Angeles. Of course, that team moved. So, and because another thing too is because last week, as I mentioned before, like because you have all these new teams here, and of course the Mexico team, the Monterrey Kings, they had their first ever signee for that franchise, and it's a good first one because it's quarterback Corey Curtis, and he used to go to Ohio State, then he transferred to a D2 school in Gannon University, and he actually was recently in the Seahawks camp. Of course, I mentioned last week, this is something I thought the UFL would look at, but he signed here, and he has a big body that works well in the arena football world.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we've been wanting to see if he can get some action under him, and this is probably a great opportunity. You know, one thing I think that will help him, and I want to see with this is, you know, can he adapt to the speed of the game? That's one of the challenges with arena quarterbacks, first year guys that have never played. Can he come in here? Can he adapt and be really quick trigger and quick read? You know, the big body I think that he has will help a ton. You know, he can take some impact and kind of maybe shake some tackles, buy some time a little bit if he needs to, but that's going to be the key. Otherwise, though, yeah, the talent and the portfolio of, you know, the what if, or at least the potential is clearly there. And I think for Monterrey, that is someone that is a great signing that's going to get some buzz. Once they start posting about these signings, they're still working a few kinks out on their end on some things, but you know, that post going out will probably go really well. And that's a player it's a great one to have to go into camp. Good to lock down a quarterback that might be your starter come week 1.
Yeah, then Monterey had, like, the recent signings I already have in my notes here. Monterey had 2 more signings officially. There could be more, as you said. Amos Coleman III, wide receiver, defensive back. So he has a weapon now, so that's good. And then on defense, Ariza and one of those Cajun names down there in Louisiana with the
Thibodeau.
Yep, a linebacker, and yep, a linebacker is really important in the defense. You need a real football, so they're starting to build their offense, and now they're starting with the defense. And then when it comes, we mentioned Oregon. Oregon, so far, at least officially, has already have 4 signings, and their first ever signed is, I actually like it's a defensive lineman, Kevin DeShields. I think I misspelled that name for some reason.
I think it's Kevin DeShields, if that's who you're talking about.
DeShields, yeah, there we go. So, yeah, then you got James Hines, the 4th offensive D-line, Jayton Roberts, linebacker, defensive back, and then Latravius Kingsland-Kennedy.
Yeah.
That's
just today. Don't forget as well, Caleb Wells, linebacker, also signed up on the 26th.
Like, we both know, like, the whole with Chuck Jones, and like I said, the Black Bears was a good team if it just wasn't league owned. So we know what he's bringing to the table.
No, Chuck is a great coach. I gotta the more I've gotten to know him, and I'll be honest, I didn't follow the AWFC as hardcore or as much until after I started reading when they were coming into AFL last year. He's a good players coach. He gets the best out of his guys, we saw, you know, and that's a guy I'm glad that is in AF1. And I think I'm glad to see that he's got a little more hands-on with the team this year too, to where he can not only the fact that he's a great coach, but again, he knows this community. That's a great asset to have, is a guy that wants to be going into the town and city, knows what he's going to find in Redmond, in Bend, that Central Oregon market. So massive props. They got a good one there. I really like Coach Jones. Anytime I've interacted with him, he's a good choice to have.
And then, like, I want to just go to, like, I'll re-show the map here because it's just like, now you have good traveling distance. Now you just have buildings kind of in an island a little bit, but that's a lot better travel distance with Washington. And
oh yeah,
And then Stockton, they have yet to sign someone just yet, but they're probably going to happen soon, I'm assuming, because they're not the only franchise, because as of right now, Nashville, Wilkes-Barre, Stockton, and that's, as far as I know, that are the only teams that have not signed anyone as of yet.
Right, you are. Yeah, those are the only 3 of the confirmed that have not had a signing so far. And different varying choices. Some teams, have a different process of how they want to evaluate talent or who they're looking for, or they're in different stages of development. So just gotta wait and see. 2 of those, are expansion franchises, and I think that's very understandable. Monterey just getting started, of course, is one that they're still trickling in. Oregon, the fact they've jumped in so quickly is impressive. So I got to add props to that.
Yeah, though you would think Chuck Jones has connections, and we probably see some former Black Bears more likely from that team. So
you're right.
So, and then of course Washington, they resigned some players, though. I think one thing we can agree on, hopefully they have a bigger center that they did last year. That was one problem that they had. I don't know, they recently signed Damian Lorby, an offensive lineman. Not too sure if he's a center or not. They signed, of course, one of the big things in arena football, fullback with Bryce Vandervoort. And then, of course, you got another wide receiver with Otis Odom. I believe that's a re-sign, I think. I have to double check that. Mm-hmm. And then I want to go to the Midwest here, because Salina signed a lot of people with Special last week. They resigned some people, a lot of resignings. And of course, they're the repeating it's hard for me to say repeat because this is a new league and stuff. So repeat. So I not because he mentioned, the CEO Jerry did, that the divisions are not going to be quite as the same as it was in the Arena Football League had last year. There might just be an East and West division. So we're not too sure what divisions are going to be just yet, Zach.
Right. It could be conferences. It could be divisions. I think a lot of it just depends on how many teams they get in, which, again, we're not fully there yet. I think we'll definitely, have a clearer picture. If they if they somehow get to, right now they have 12. Say they somehow get to 14, 16 or something like that. We'll have a clear picture, I think, then, because you have more even splits. But conference wouldn't be too hard to do if you have the right split. The thing is, you got all the Kansas teams in the middle. So who else would help with, say, if you're doing an East versus West, how do you split those teams up? Do you have it where Salina's just enough East where they're stuck on the East side, but the other 2 are stuck on the West? Do you keep them all in the same thing? And you like gerrymander it almost, where you skew it? That's what we're going to find out. I think the teams are going to dictate the amount. That is how they do that, though. Is the thing. But I'll tell you, if they wanted to do, say, 4 divisions for 12 teams, you could just do the Kansas teams as a division with 3. Yeah. And then do 3 sets of 3, but I don't know if that's what they want to do yet. So we're going to find out by mid-November, by the scheduling time. So we'll know that.
Yeah, and then the Southwest. Okay, I'm back.
I was wondering if it was me.
No, it's strange that all of a sudden this is happening, probably because it's now going to feel like fall here soon, because it turned to 80 degrees here in Missouri.
Now you're good. You were talking Southwest Kansas.
Because a team that's also improved, because one thing, of course, big story was they had a female kicker. She is now no longer part of the team. She retired. Mm-hmm. They re-signed a new kicker, Dylan Burkhart. So, and then, as before, they re-signed their starting quarterback, Matt Struck, and Southwest Kansas. I'll say it like this, because the commentators during the playoffs said this well, because we got the old style of arena football, then we got the new style, because they kind of run more of an option type deal with Southwest Kansas, with a running quarterback most of the time rather than passing. And that kind of fits it. And then they signed another quarterback, which is interesting, because when they posted it, they have a Jarvis Grissom as a quarterback / athlete.
Right.
That tells me multiple positions and some trickery that's going to be involved here.
To circle back, I think you're meaning Melissa Straughter from Washington.
I'm sorry, Washington. Yeah,
Burkhart was with Southwest Kansas last year. Was a great later addition and actually did a great job once they got him all involved. But no, Melissa, that's something Washington have to figure out because that was a great moment from what was the season to not be named, I guess is how I put it. Is Melissa Strother having some pretty iconic moments for the Wolfpack. But no, for Southwest Kansas, I'll tell you, like my colleague Adam Pelletier, when we've talked on shows in the past, I've really grown warm to Southwest Kansas's methodology, and they got some great playmakers back. Yes, they did lose Vincent DeLeo to Albany. That is a massive loss at running back, but getting Daquan Bailey Brown back, who is a fantastic return man in his own right. Michael Lawson is an excellent DB, one of the top DBs from last year's AFL that they were able to retain. I love that Matt Struck is back, by the way. I know we were talking about Grissom, but Struck, the end of the season, he came in relief duty and honestly got better as the year went on, shined in a lot of good spots. I think he could be a really great second-year jump player. And it's somebody that I'm looking to see might take that leap forward at the QB position with the weapons that are coming back. That familiarity with your guys is huge. And you don't always get that with this sport, just knowing how chaotic it can be for free agency. So it's great to see that he's gotten guys like, Bailey Brown back. Minter just got re-signed today, or this week at least. So, another great piece that they picked up. So yeah, Southwest Kansas, I like. Out of the Kansas teams, and I'm not gonna steal your thunder jumping ahead, but like all three of them, they all have some really good playmakers, and it's gonna make for some fun rivalry games between those three teams.
Yeah, like I said before, because you and I talked a little bit before, because we can agree one of the worst teams that was at the bottom of the Arena Football League last year was the Wichita Regulators, and I am glad to say they have already vastly improved from what they had last year. Though with the rivalry here, I did mention this last week because Wichita actually did sign a former Salina player, D. Washington, last week. So that's going to get really interesting. And then they also re-signed, of course, one of their star receivers, Akil Greer, and I mentioned 41 receptions, 601 yards, and 10 TDs. So that's, of course, your star offensive player there to have him back. And then I believe, they re-signed their quarterback, Donovan Deschurds, or Shields. Dear Lord. So that's also, So, and they're signing players that are new, and that because one thing you have to remember, if those that watched Arena Football League games, Wichita is one of the ones that has like a one-sided thing with the nets, so you don't really go back and forth and defend. It's interesting to watch in a way. There's nothing bad to it. You have to get used to it.
I think they're going to get that corrected this year, to be honest with you. I believe that was something that was dealt with the nets and the structure last season, if I'm correct. And this is slight speculative, but also more on the point. I can't see a league that's run by Jerry Curse having a team that would have only one set of nets up. So they're going to get that corrected. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of questions, is what I would tell you. So I don't think you're going to see a one-way system again this year. I think that was just an issue with some of the structural stuff they had, just trying to make the season work. Bit different this time around. They got more time. They got better support. We're going to see regular arena football over there. I'd be shocked if we see the same system again with this regime.
That would be good, though, because like I said, when I watched it when they were playing it there, it's like I had to get used to it because with the angles and stuff, because they just had like one camera though, so that's more convenient that way. But if they have the other nets, they're going to need more than one camera.
Yeah, so, I mean, and they're one that I think a lot of people are wanting to see. Is a team that I think has a lot of people asking, how much improvement do they make? Remember they had broadcasts that, weren't exactly up to snuff last year. They know this, I've talked with a team in when I've had chances over the offseason, they know they're ready to prove people that they are an elite franchise. And I'm excited to see what they do. And they got some great people that they've switched out in the front office and also with their ownership that are excited to, I think, just kind of show that, what last year was more of a product of just timing and just who they were under. I think this year is going to be a great season for them, and I think they're ready to show some stuff off. The signings, I think, are a great start. Their GM, Chris Stevens, who's a former player for the Regulators, he's one of the guys that's helping getting so many of these great players already in and being so aggressive in free agency right now.
Yeah, and then we'll go a little bit more to the East now, and if you want to talk about a team that's basically already improving and making sure they want to get to the championship, because that's, of course, the Albany Firebirds. Dear Lord.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, like, I know you're good, but it's like you're just like trying to get a little bit more, and heck, and they went back to the past, coming, like, rising from the ashes from the old Albany Empire days and signed quarterback Sam Castronova this week. So it's I had to make sure to say Castronova, not Casanova. Either way,
no, Casanova. I
remember that.
That's good.
I would not be surprised if someone nicknamed him that over in his life. So
I mean, he's smooth. He's a Casanova on the field, that's for sure.
Yeah. So it's kind of, because you have to remember the Albany Firebirds basically is what the remnants of what the Empire was because of Antonio Brown.
Oh man, be careful mentioning that around any of those guys over there in Albany. They are very much mentally have tried to avoid talking anything about the year that must not be named.
I'm still waiting to see if there's some mini series or some mini documentary about the fall of an empire. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Fierce Hell Zach might be a producer or something about that.
I would gladly, if I have time, do that entire conversation. That year, just again, recycling back, and I hate doing it, just Albany was just part of it. And that whole season was a madhouse is what I can tell you. So got to say, I am glad last year, even with crazy town that they had being in the AFL, much smoother. I think they brought a lot of faith from fandom back, and a lot of people resonated really well. It seemed like very well with the Firebirds branding, even more so than the Albany Empire branding, so to speak. So good Lord, though, this roster, it used to be the Empire way. Now it's kind of the Albany way, as they put it. And I mean, look, they've already brought tons of people back from winning rosters or last year's that were great. Sam Castronova's as much as I love Jake Medlock, he's an instant upgrade. He's so to speak, I call it a hometown hero. I know he's from Western New York, out that way, but people in Albany love him. He's done great things for the city, champion, an excellent athlete, someone that I think people were really wanting to come back after what happened with the Antonio Brown situation. Now, he was unfortunately one of the players that was dispersed at the wrong time and should not have been let go. And it's kind of great to see that story come back full circle, and he gets to now play and be that centerpiece in that offense. And they're currently still, as they mentioned, at their press conference about that signing, along with Sean Lockett, who came out of retirement after saying he was done at center, that they are currently negotiating with Darius Prince. I imagine they get that done. I would be shocked if they didn't, for how tied that team is to him and how much community loves Darius Prince as an athlete and a community member. So the fact they've gotten those two back, you got Trayvon Shorts and company back, other key stars like Isaiah Scott, and like I talked to you earlier, they've signed Vincent DeLeo. They got Ezekiel Rose from Nashville, who was at freaking nose guard, the best nose guard in the league last year in AFL. And then one of the other ones that kind of, you just talk about these signings, they keep on grabbing these insanely great talents. And they picked up Marquise Lawson Greenwood, another defensive line signing who was fantastic over in Southwest Kansas. So they signed two Southwest Kansas top talents out of free agency and pick up tons of their own players and get Castronova over from the IFL back from San Antonio, by the way, away from his previous head coach and Tom Manas. Crazy offseason. Right now, I know that there's a lot of people that love Salina, Billings. I love Southwest Kansas and Wichita. Albany is, to me, winning the offseason if we're talking big name blockbusters. Easily. The big splashes for the most part. they're winning it so far in that category.
Yeah, though, if I would have to do like a loser type situation, right? Like, I would have to say Orlando. Their quarterback retired. They did re-sign Trevon Shorts. That's someone you needed to have back. It just I just haven't seen a lot of official signings from the Orlando Predators organization yet.
They've gotten some guys that they're lined up. They're not not all of them are splashes. So they got Cale Balls, who's been, a very reliable player. Herky Walls' son, essentially. He's been a great third receiver and DB at times throughout his tenure with Orlando. A few other people they've gotten, again, just kind of some guys that have been around. Nick Evans was with them last year. It's pretty solid. Shahan Williams, great defensive end that's coming back. So, they do have some pieces. Shakai Holiness as well. There's good defensive spots. I think a lot of questions are going to be, who are they getting on offense next season? That's going to be something that I'm going to keep with a close eye, because Drew Powell's not going to be with the Preds. He's back in the IFL this year with the Rattlers, which, unless UC Snead didn't re-sign with them in Arizona. So I'm taking it that was their contingency plan with Arizona. And, Drew has a great connection out here with the Rattlers anyway, out in the Valley. So, it's a shame they lost him. I'm curious who they get at QB. Kind of wondering. I mean, even familiar faces like Joseph Hess. Joseph Hess is signed on with the Washington Wolfpack. So you can't rely on getting him back. And I know he's been getting slightly better as the years have gone on. So I'm really wondering who AJ Burton company have lined up at quarterback, because they focused a lot on the defensive side, which makes sense since Burt is more of the defensive being he is. And I think they're just trying to figure out those pieces on who they can get on offense right now.
Yeah, and it's just going to be kind of interesting because, we know like I said before, Orlando's having some local tryouts, and the other teams are going to have some local talent too. I'm kind of interested, with Monterey, what local talent do they get? Because people think Mexico doesn't have any football talent. Yes, they do. I can tell you they do.
I imagine you could pitch to a lot of, if I was smart for whoever, and again, the coach hasn't been announced for Monterey, so there either is someone that is front office that is doing these signings, or they have the coach and haven't gone through announcing yet. But if I was a smart man, I'd be leveraging LFA talents out that way if I'm looking. Or, there is a good Mexican football high school culture out in that portion of Mexico too. Look for talents, maybe guys that just got removed from that section or the college football section of that scene, because there are some decent colleges that do football out in Mexico, up in northern Mexico. So, going to be a challenge. You'll get guys stateside too. You just got to get, one thing you got to do, and this is with teams that play Monterey, got to get passports. You're required to have one if you're going to be going play over there. So it's a little bit trickier situation, manageable, but it's a little different. We haven't seen this in arena since 2002 when the Toronto Phantom existed. So we haven't seen an international kind of exposure like that in over 2 decades.
Yeah, and yes, you do need a passport, because my school, Central Methodist University, the football team there actually had to get passport because they actually had to play their all-star college Mexican team back in 2009.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Boy, and I don't know why they agreed to that, but they didn't do well in that game. So, anyway, we're going to take a short break. Then we're going to discuss a little bit of IFL stuff here. Be right back. And we're back. So, Zach, with the IFL, a few months ago, because they're getting an expansion team, it's like the AF1 is with the Freight in Indianapolis. And They hired a good head coach there. I believe he was with the Bay Area Panthers, or am I thinking of a different organization, if I remember correctly?
Well, Dixie Wooten's been kind of all over the place. He's my main memories, at least, of following him have been with Tucson Sugar Skulls.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm going to verify that before I fully do that, because pardon me on that. Wooten's been in a lot of spots. That's the only reason why I kind of have to double check myself with all the signings he's been. But he's a great hire, great offensive mind. Yes, he was with Bay Area, so you're correct, and that's what I thought it was the case for one of his last stops. So yeah, good to see him. And that's a great pickup, and that's what they're dealing with. They're getting into the Indianapolis market. But unfortunately, and I'll be honest with you, I was hoping it was that plus they keep all the teams, and well, unfortunately, we have 2 losses this year.
Yeah, I have an updated IFL map as well here. So as you can see, there used to be another Texas team, and then you had a team also on the East Coast, and dear Lord, the East Coast part for the IFL just looks barren right now with the departing of the Duke City Gladiators and then the Frisco Fighters. Frisco Fighters, I believe this was their 4th year. They came in 2020 or 2021, if I remember correctly. And then, it seemed like their social media said, get ready for next season. Then last week, all of a sudden, we were hearing rumblings. People that pay attention to football, I know you heard them too. It was and there was now to the maybe 1 to 2 teams that either they're gone, maybe gone, but now it's just more like they're just basically in carbonite right now, frozen for a year. Hopefully that's the case, because here's the thing: there's been many teams that said, "Oh, we're going to be put on hold for a year," and then they don't come back. So I'm hopefully that's not the case on either of these.
I really, for the sake of arena, I hate seeing these teams close in any of these leagues. It sucks. And I think what kills me is, there are, in terms of a contingent in Frisco and Duke City, there's plenty of people I know that go to those games. They enjoy those games. I went to Frisco last year. I think the venue is pretty nice and what their setup was. But what stinks is that, financials eventually seal and choose how you do things with this sport. And what's been coming out is, the Germain family, who owns the Frisco Fighters, they have the team managed by the Dallas Stars, but they have the say on how the team is owned and if it operates. And at least what I've seen going around is that 2 of the 3 who own the team in the family voted no to continue next year. 1 said yes. And there's been rumors that they had been trying to sell the team to a local property or local management in the Dallas, Texas, or northern Texas area. Didn't get successful this season. There's still hope by some coaches that they can get it sold next year, to be determined. But as you have said, it's kind of more often than not, you don't see these teams come back. It's a little harder for these smaller sports properties to be bought up and brought back. It's more of the minority case. And I know that Duke City's also expressed the same thing, that they're going to try and attempt to come back next year. They feel confident they're going to come back next year. And I just don't know. I heard a lot more discouraging things about Duke City than I did about Frisco. Frisco is more surprising to me, and I think a lot more people than Duke City was. And I just don't know if these 2 are going to come back. Not to mention, people are still wondering what's up with the Dakota Bucks, who had to also push off for a year. And the rule with the IFL is you only have 3 seasons you can push off until your territory rights run out. So a lot of questions with at least those 3 teams. I'm not having good faith that any of the 3 come up unless some sort of a miracle sale happens. But it sucks because I think all 3 of those were really good brands. And, you hate it because the IFL, and I will say this in confidence, is the top league right now. AF1 is here, but it's got to prove itself. It's got to play a whole season. I'm going to put that out. But what stinks is that, the IFL had unfortunately lost some teams. You just got to roll with the punches. Hopefully the strength of what is the core of new guys coming in strengthens up what unfortunately was lost over the last season.
Yeah, but continuing on with the state of Texas, because strangely, it's a lot of Texas teams that are having problem in the indoor football world, because And with the National Rugby League, the Corpus Christi team was supposed to play. Like they announced on social media, it looks like they were going to be playing. Then all of a sudden, it's kind of one of the more interesting rhetorics I've ever heard. It just seems like they were planning to, but then all of a sudden the league is like moving the goalposts for them to actually start playing. It's like, wait a minute here, did both of them not come together at the right way and dot the I's and the T's here, or is one side just playing with the other here? It's just like, what's going on here with that situation?
Rough to say. And you see that both in their different ways put out statements. Now, the NAL didn't put out an official press release, but they did on their schedule release have of course, Commissioner Tom Wilkenhurst bring up the situation. That was one of the first things he brought up during the scheduling, and essentially put it as part scheduling issue and conflicts, but he also alluded to other benchmarks that weren't met by the Tritons, which didn't go into full detail, kind of like a legalism type of response. You can't really go too in depth, or you don't want to get too in the weeds and then you get into some trouble, or I would say get over your head on the responses you want to do, is how I viewed it. But something with the scheduling was not matching up. And to be fair, to Corpus Christi, the NAL schedule got some pretty mixed reviews anyway from some of the teams. I mean, Omaha's only playing one of the two champions once that is coming into this season, with Wheeling one time. They aren't playing Columbus at all. They're not playing some of the West Coast teams as well. There's a few other little small pieces here and there that people picked out, but I don't know what the full story is. I feel like there's a gray area, and I'm wondering what happens with Corpus Christi, because I'll be frank, and this is just me and others that have evaluated the merger with the AIF. Columbus was considered the leader of this merger. Corpus Christi to many was considered kind of like that second consolidation prize, like the really good, you got Harrisburg coming in as well, and Beaumont gets signed on after taking a year off to come join, but Corpus Christi was looked at as like the number 2 de facto team coming over from that merger that looked stable. So I think it was shocking to a lot of people that they couldn't get some things done. And I'd be shocked if they aren't playing next year, because the people that are running that organization are pretty committed and they love that sport a lot. Also had some decent fan interaction and sponsorship opportunity last season from what I saw. So I'd be surprised if they don't play somewhere. I just don't know where. That's the thing. There's no guarantees where they're playing right now.
I think it'd be kind of too late to put in their own bid into the AF1. It would be interesting, but I just think it might be too late for them because, like you said, it's interesting to me about that, scheduling conflicts. This wasn't discussed before they made the announcement here. It's like, the
way that their announcement came off, and I'm going to pull it up really quick on how they put it down, but Corpus Christi made it sound like as if they would bring a schedule to the table, and then, at least the way I read it, was they bring a schedule to the table, and then the league would have some of the teams not want to travel out that way or something along that line. Like it wouldn't be convenient. That's how I read it, though. So, we'll bring this up while you're talking, but that, I get it. Again, travel's an expensive cost, but you do bring these teams into play if that was really what happened. Now, I'm going to give the NAL benefit of the doubt a little bit, because you only got one full release side of the story. The other is kind of just your commissioner coming on to a live stream and saying some things. But if that's really what happened, well, I wonder who might have got the better say at some point.
Yeah, it's just weird that it's all these Texas teams, because let me show the maps again, because as of right now, AF1, nothing in Texas, and you got that whole big thing here. So, I would like them to have a team somewhere for near the Monterey Elm for Mexico right there. I honestly kind of wish, because Louisiana's a good spot. You got New Mexico, and let's not forget about Georgia, though. I don't know, interesting to me enough, I'm surprised that nothing had, Iowa is pretty much a tap market, in my opinion, unfortunately.
Yeah. Kind of
So,
is.
like,
I would not want to go back to or I wouldn't want to add another team to the state. And there's already teams trying to come in, like Coralville Chaos. They're trying to still exist. You got the folks who, unfortunately, over in the AIF, was it Montero there who owns the existence of the River Kings at this point? That's trying to make that a thing. Like there's, the Barnstorms. There's a lot. There's a
and
lot.
with the IFL map, like another thing too is it just that hard to put a team in Nebraska? I'm just trying to think. Like I really haven't seen much of the Nebraska state.
Well, now remember, and I think I think you referenced this. You popped out a little for me. You're talking the danger, right? Grand Island. I mean, that's where at least I don't know if that's changed, but the IFL office used to be in Grand Island, or still is. Last I had heard, that team similar fate is like how we talk with Frisco or with Duke City or even Dakota. Someone didn't buy it. It's that simple. Like you just have all these assets and things, you got to sell it, and if you don't have someone buy it, it's better just to liquidate it. Just get rid of everything.
And like
I think that's what happened there.
And like I'll still put St. Louis here up for any of the leagues here because that's not just for like a spot. It's good location wise for any of the leagues for the other teams to travel.
Well, and a renovated family arena like we've talked about.
Yes,
now, right?
And believe it or not, WWE was actually going to put their NXT event there, but they couldn't because it was booked. And then they put it in the factory. The problem was because of how it was built, even though it has some MMA events there, you couldn't really see how the ring was at the very top of the balcony stuff. So, and the family arena, like I said it here in the past, it had about close to 15 million renovations, strangely paid by bonds and the government. So you don't have to worry about that. Of course, I know Jerry Kurtz and why am I forgetting his name here? He is like the director of player personnel for AF1 because
you're talking Gary Compton.
Compton, yeah, there we go. Yes, because he mentioned some of the problems with the scheduling and this is true for the Fan Arena. Those arenas hold a lot of not just high school graduations but college graduations as well. Because that's the one thing because they want to make sure they get commitments not only financially but also by the arenas as well to enter the AF1.
Yeah, you got to have those dates, and even the arenas. You talk with them, they also want to know the dates. So it is a balancing act when you negotiate with an arena. The more I've learned about how this works with trying to talk about a season or starting a franchise, it's a balancing act. Both want to know dates or both want to ask about availability back and forth. The arena really wants to know, hey, what days are you looking at specifically? What's the schedule? So that's a huge part is you get these teams locked in, then you can post that schedule and then you can say, hey, here's what we're already looking at. We have this planned out, possibly. Here's our schedule. We can get that knocked out or tweak as we need. So that's important to arenas because, like, you're talking family arena. I assume that, like you're hinting at, they do a ton of venue specific things like graduations or extra stuff that maybe you don't think about as big ticket items. That takes up time, and so that makes it harder for a new team to come in. Well, it's like, well, we have arenas, but do we have the availability? Maybe we have the money, but we don't have the place to play is the thing. So you start looking around.
Yeah. One thing I want to get to you, Zach, here, because even though good things for AF1, even though this is a down thing, not as bad as compared to what happened with Lee Hunt and G6 Sports and and not to mention, I'm still waiting because remember the former owners are going to be doing a lawsuit against GC Sports, and I'm waiting for when they do that because they still have not been paid back for having the championship game at the brawl at the mall. That is because this was reported in Nashville last week, but then of course Anthony Carter from Arena Insider actually put an article out today because now we actually have papers to it there and it's a little bit different. It's kind of like for people that know law speak, I do know a little bit. This is basically a breach of contract type of thing, and it's a little bit more, has more solid. It's not like anywhere. This ain't a frivolous lawsuit. No. Because they're basically suing for damages and also get out type of thing there because As it reads here, the Nashville Cats ownership group filed a lawsuit against its chairman over claims of not receiving payment towards a $2.5 million loan to buy into the franchise. According to the 5-page complaint, which was filed on October 18th, strange, my birthday, Judge Court for obtained Monday by Arena Insider today. National Arena Sports alleged Charles Chuck Medell failed to pay on a signed $2.5 million promissory note. So, like I said last week, always have a promissory note. Or agreements mean nothing. They can, but there's not much. You need to have physical type of paper. Heck, e-signature would work. Tap digital right there. A lot of it's on paper. Oral agreements. No.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting situation is the best I can put it. And I think Jeff Fisher's statement on the matter and how he's focused on still, they still want a team in Nashville. They still want a team in that area, clearly. But you can see there's some things they got to take care of. If you were not to put point and point together, but there's a good chance that might be the reason why they haven't been able to sign people is they've got some things to figure out. Now, that being said, I still have good confidence just considering Jeff's involvement in this league. I mean, again, we're talking the commissioner of AF1 here that, I feel like has a pretty good, I would feel personal investment towards this that I would be, and just in my own opinion, would be shocked if you don't see a team in Nashville or somewhere in that area next year. I'd be shocked. But again, you got to see how this plays out. But I would be completely shocked if they don't figure this out. There's too much invested and it's too much of a good brand you see online to just not have something available. I mean, even think about Clarksville, Tennessee last year. The people that went to that game, and you watched this game, Will, insane crowd. They packed the F&M arena out.
I would put them basically third behind, and above them would be Albany and Orlando. And then that's kind of hard because with all the situation that happened last year, who was after the three there, like Billings did kind of well. Then Washington kind of did well, but it was hard to see the crowd with how the camera angles were, but they did well. And then of course you got the Kansas teams. Of course, regulars, it was kind of hard because of how they had their thing with the one-sided field. Like the games were broadcasted good as long when they got to YouTube. Don't even remind me of the Viry network or whatever that thing was.
Oh, Vir TV. Yeah.
We did not know it existed until that was there. Then the only thing interesting was Burt Reynolds' last interview that was on there. So
I didn't realize that was just happened to be available.
Yep, that happened to be available. And one thing from the article I read last week, apparently McDowell has a history of lawsuits against him. So, dear Lord. So it's like, and one thing that helped him, like I said, I have a photo with the article here. Here's part of the promissory note that he signed that led out all the. So they have a pretty good case, in my opinion. So
yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. Is the thing, because at some point you're going to have to make a decision on your season. Is the deal? If this, and again, this is me just kind of feeling out how this situation is. You haven't seen signings and anything like that. And I feel like that has something to do with it. And so we'll have to see how that plays out. But sooner rather than later, it is getting to November. There's still time, but you don't want to wait too long. There's a lot of stuff in the offseason you want to work on. There's a lot of things you got to get addressed. You got to sell advertisements, for crying out loud, or get back with advertisers. You got to get players. You got to talk to your coaches. I mean, that's the thing. And you got to figure out if you're going to get this done. Again, I'd be shocked if they don't have a season. But, again, you're tied up in court. That's going to take your time, so just something to keep an eye on without a doubt.
Because we only have a few more minutes here, Zach, because I'll mention to the audience here, there will not be an Arena STL next week due to an obvious the event that's happening next week.
Go do your civic duty. I don't care who you vote for. Go do your civic duty.
Though I will say, for Missouri, vote yes on Amendment 2 for sports betting in Missouri. All their sports betting is already, all the states that border us has it.
I would agree fully. You should definitely vote for that.
Yes. And then it will be interesting because I'll pull up the map once again. What are the other teams? Because I honestly think there'll be at least, I don't know, minimum 2 more teams, I'll guess. Because they just need to help Montreal add a team or 2 there. You could add another team in the West, but you might want to need to do something in the Midwest to East part there, because right now the Kansas and Nashville are together, and hopefully that's the case.
Well, and now I will say, while we're talking teams, I don't know if he's on, but I see our good buddy Michael Lathrop here much earlier in the show had brought up the Kings, which, if you guys have been following AF1, the Las Vegas Kings have now made basically not 1 but 2 false start promises that they are joining AF1, which, to reiterate the league, they have not been allowed in. There's nothing to say they've been allowed in. The league is the only one that can say that they are in. And I'll be frank, my own honest thoughts, I'd be shocked if you let a team in after doing 2 publicity stunts like that at this point. And the fact that you're asking for $100K in money, credit, hey, there's other ways I've seen advertising for investment, but I'm just saying, twice saying you're confirmed when the league has stressed, and I put this out there too, just knowing the league, they are dead serious on we're the only ones that confirm teams. So false starts like that, if you're someone that is trying to get in, which you might have saw the AFU videos, Las Vegas had representation there, but that doesn't mean that they're in. So, that only hurts their chances if they are trying to actually get in. We'll find out in early November, but that's not going to help you.
Yeah. Usually, if you want to get in, you don't want to do a false start type of announcement and just
twice.
Say,
by the way, their coach slash owner tried to say that during AFU, and then the team tried to do it.
Yeah,
twice in a month.
We know the possibility of, we know that he was there for the Arizona Bandits owners was there because he was. We saw him there.
Again, you can see it. You can see in AFU, the videos show the teams that were there. It just doesn't mean that they're in. They still have to do the things to prove they can make it in. So
yeah, Arizona Bandits, if they do come in, that's a great location, though. I don't know, that might help Montreal, not that much, but better.
It probably would. I mean, it's west enough,
Yeah, then it just need to figure out where else. Like I said, get teams in New Mexico would be tremendous if they're able to do that. And then honestly though, is there any I don't recall any of the teams in Kentucky. That's another state I'm still quite surprised I haven't heard much about.
I haven't heard nothing about Kentucky.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm surprised Kentucky isn't. There's someone in Kentucky trying to do something. That's what I mean.
I don't know. I mean, Louisville's right there. Can you get? I mean, do you want? The thing is, though, can you get a stable ownership that's not the Louisville Extreme?
Yeah,
an ownership that actually is serious about getting advertisers and selling tickets. Because I went to both of those home games for that franchise, and that team did little to nothing on the ground in Louisville. No one knew what the heck was going on with that team. Great brand. I love the color scheme. I love the jerseys. That's an ownership that proves that clearly was not fully serious about what they were getting into in the endeavor. And that's one of the last, as we're talking, one of the last, I think, bad IFL team choices. It's been a while since they've had a bad grab to bring a team in. So
yeah. And unfortunately, we're going to have to end here a little bit because there is something happening on here on Fuel Sports Network at 8 o'clock. Zach, thank you for joining me this evening. We will have you on again soon. Thank you all for joining us. See you here in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us.